Thou that sleepest, arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you'll find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Wakey, wakey, wakey. Oh, boy, do opportunities abound. Do opportunities abound. Listen closely. This is very important, especially for today's program. We're going to be expressing some opinions here. Okay? They may be factual, may not be factual. But you are about to listen to 2 hours of opinion and entertainment supplied by Last Call Radio. We're not doctors, lawyers, politicians, professional journalists, nor do either of us hold a degree in anything, not that that would make any difference, our opinion, of course. We only ask that you personally and or corporately not take our statements or those that we voice from others personal, nor do we recommend that you act on them as if they are facts, although they might very well be just that, facts. But again, that's our opinion. You're not required to listen to, act on, repeat anything that you hear today, nor assume, again, that they are facts. And that any information we present is by no means meant to harm or threaten anyone. But we think you ought to listen this morning because there's a lot of good information coming your way. First of all, we're going to talk to you about how to win by losing. Scott Schara, the Schara family is absolutely amazing. What they have gone through. And now they're standing in position once again and at the ready. It's just absolutely amazing. And they have managed to open up a door that nobody else has. And in the second hour, we're going to talk about a potential issue within the United States already that is brewing. Something that would will get rid of under God, at least the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Morning, Mr. Anderson. You ready to do this?
Oh, I hope so. God leading. I have to trust the Lord. I can't do this stuff on my own. I'll tell you. And what's going on around us makes my head spin if I look at it too much.
Yeah, don't let that
so
get
I'm a little dizzy. I walk funny. People might think I'm not sober, but it's just because the world's got me. I guess the world's going, what, about 8,000 miles an hour or something around? No, it's more than that. I forget my astronomy.
Yep. I'm going to go through the headlines and remind me to share a court experience with you when we start to talk about the Schara versus Ascension Health. My goodness. And by the way, Juneteenth.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I didn't get mail that day.
I decided to go out to a warehouse and do some shopping. Not a good idea. Not a good idea at all.
You ready for that video?
I didn't. Yeah. You, yeah, we'll get into that video here shortly, but Juneteenth, I personally, I'm not on totally on board yet. I know some people are sensing that they need to be. Others say that it's trying to steal things from the 4th of July because we always celebrate our independence there. Again, you have to form your own opinion. I read a article by Wade Miller who said, I won't celebrate Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Oh, man.
Well, it's a day off with pay. Why not?
Yeah, well, for some people.
For some people.
Yeah, those who like to go to warehouses. In terms of headlines, A 10-year AI moratorium will leave Americans manipulated in ways we don't understand. If you cannot see that we, the people, are no longer running this nation, I didn't say we couldn't, but we're not. We're being run by, and you can guess whoever that is. It doesn't make any difference. There's somebody beyond our government, beyond the deep state, that is running the deep state.
We abdicated to that a long time ago, somehow.
Well, yeah, it's to me, it's that Maslow's hierarchy of need. We've reached that self-actualization, and we want everybody. We're all victims. We're all entitled. So you better deliver my dinner tonight at 4:00 at the door or 5:00 at the door, and it better be everything I want, or I'm going to complain.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Trump
Where do I sign up?
Yeah. You've already signed up and don't know it. Trump calls for unconditional surrender from Iran. Tucker Carlson, President Trump is aiding and abetting Israel's attempt to trigger total war with Iran. We're not going to get into that discussion this morning, but it is interesting. It seems to be at the top of everybody's list to discuss. And what we're going to talk about today, go ahead.
I was surprised. There's a lot. And I do have a valid short video later I'll share.
Okay.
At one of our breaks.
A half-mile long tunnel connecting Tijuana neighborhood to San Diego County has been uncovered by federal authorities. Why would they even build a tunnel? I mean, just call. Oh, that's right. You can't call the former vice president and have a plane bring you over. That's not happening now. Senator Ted Cruz has delivered a powerful legislative victory for working Americans, and President Donald J. Trump, with the unanimous Senate passage of the No Tax on Tips Act, is pro-worker, pro-growth policy that fulfills a core promises of Trump's second-term agenda. He delivered on that promise. You can't fault him for that. Hochul, we're actually rolling out brand new taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal immigrants in New York City. Number of undocumented migrants released into the country last month, 0. Analysis, blue-collar wages rise as illegal immigration declines. We were talking pre-show this morning. Somebody was talking about truckers. There used to be a lot of what we'll call immigrants driving the trucks, and that seems to be coming down a little bit. The National Guard can stay. Ninth Circuit rules in favor of Trump. You know, in the Bible, there's a book of Judges. It kind of sort of really looks like we're being run by judges. The President of the United States, the King of the United States, can't do anything without the court justices. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he did a great interview on The View. Surprise woke Democrats on The View with his stance on illegal immigration. He basically said, if you're going to immigrate to the United States, then you need to do it and act like you're a guest. And don't break into the border doing that, by the way.
You mean don't act like this guy at Costco?
I went to Costco today without a membership. I just snuck around the card readers because I didn't want to wait in line for a membership. Then they caught me in the store and asked me to leave. They said to leave or go to the register to get a membership. Instead of leaving, I just demanded free items. And then I started waving a Sam's Club flag all around Costco just to show Costco how much I loved Costco. And then when they asked me to leave, I just started stealing stuff and breaking things and throwing stuff at their employees. They should have just let me shop there without a membership, because I am special and I am right and they're wrong. Does any of this make sense?
I think that is an absolutely beautiful analysis. Absolutely beautiful. Robots and intelligent design, war room battleground EP, worst case scenario, humanity goes extinct. Talking about AI, the all-seeing eye. Why did Trump ask Planetire to create a national database of U.S. citizens? You're being watched, folks. Supreme Court uphold Tennessee laws banning same-sex surgeries for kids. That's good news. In the darkest tunnels, Hamas survivors found God amid riots. Border Control sees record low illegal immigration encounters. Isn't that interesting? Average age of U.S. women giving birth increases to nearly 30. 30 years old. What's the best age for a woman to give children, to get pregnant? What is that? 30 and above, 40 and above, 50 and above, or 30 and below?
I advise getting kids when you're young enough to keep up with them.
Well, then nobody's going to have any children.
Oh,
Nobody's going to have any children, Mr. Anderson. You better rethink that. Better rethink that. A victory for reality. Supreme Court upholds Tennessee law. Got that one. Report exposes hospitals defying crackdowns on DEI and transgender practices. Huh. I guess COVID is still alive, isn't it? Not the people that had the vaccination for it, but COVID. 2, opinion. That was an opinion. Okay? I'm entitled to them. You're entitled to them. Top FDA officials admit she refused the COVID-19 vaccine while pregnant. Boy, if we only knew. If we only knew. Still no justice for COVID nursing home deaths. China interfered in 2020 elections. What about the mainstream press, folks? You think China interrupted? Phew. The mainstream press was terrible. You know, decisions are based on information. And if you only have one segment of the information, one side of the information, what kind of decision can you make? If you've been indoctrinated by our government-run schools, one-sided information, what kind of a decision are you going to make? Life has no meaning. Morals are relative. Man, not God's the measure of all things, and the state's your daddy. Boom, 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 boom. And then you go to court with a jury of your peers. What is a peer, right? You know, speaking of COVID and speaking of the legal system, it's my understanding that there were more than 6 election fraud lawsuits that were filed, and not a single court allowed the evidence to be heard. That's why the Schara case is so important. They got into court. They had standing, which means that evidence was presented that Big Brother did not want to have out there. And the millions of viewers that saw that court case, yes, it was in the millions, got an education. They got some news. They got some news, some information, some objective information that they didn't already have. Again, they were dismissed, those dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of cases, before the evidence could be made public. What the Schara case did was start to bring that evidence out. Are our courts rigged and we've had a judicial co-op? I think so. I think so. We're going to talk about the Scott Schara case, and you can play that one video when we come back from the break, Mr. Anderson. BJ Edwards along, Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. What happened in Wisconsin?
Last Call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
We are now just days away from delivering millions of doses of a safe and effective vaccine that will soon end this pandemic and save millions of lives. Tonight, we give thanks for all of the scientists, researchers, manufacturers, workers, and service members who have worked tirelessly to make this breakthrough possible. It is truly a Christmas miracle. One of the great achievements medically, they say, ever in history. I have really good news. Today, our nation has achieved a medical miracle. We have delivered a safe and effective vaccine in just 9 months. This is one of the greatest scientific accomplishments in history. It will save millions of lives and soon end the pandemic once and for all. I am thrilled to report that the FDA has authorized the Pfizer vaccine. We have given Pfizer and other companies a great deal of money, hoping this would be the outcome, and it was. On behalf of the American people, I'd like to thank all of the brilliant scientists, technicians, doctors, and workers who made this all possible. Pfizer and Moderna have announced their vaccine is approximately 95% effective, far exceeding expectations. These vaccines are also very safe. American citizens participated in clinical trials that were far larger than normal and had no serious side effects. The dedicated and independent experts at the FDA meticulously studied the results of the trials, and it has now passed the gold standard of safety. Remember, we took care of a lot of people, including, I guess, on December 21st, we took care of Joe Biden because he got his shot. He got his vaccine. He forgot. It shows you how unpainful that vaccine shot is, so everybody go get your shot.
It works incredibly well, 95%, maybe even more than that. It works incredibly well, and I would recommend it to a lot of people that don't want to get it, and a lot of those people voted for me, frankly. But, again, we have our freedoms, and we have to live by that, and I agree with that also. But it's a great vaccine, it's a safe vaccine, and it's something that works.
I recommend you take it, but I also believe in your freedoms 100%.
When you have the vaccine, people that do, and it's a very small number relatively, but people that do get it get better much quicker. And it's a very important thing to know. They don't get nearly as sick, and they get better. Lindsey Graham's an example. He said, if I didn't have this vaccine, I would have died.
And you know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. Bree, you got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedoms. But I happen to take the vaccine.
What vaccine did you get? Have you shared that with us yet?
Well, I got the Pfizer, and I would have been very happy with any of them.
I wouldn't say to anybody you have to, but I would sell it. Look, I'm very proud of what we did with the vaccines. It was supposed to take 5 years, and they said it wasn't going to work. I did 3 vaccines in less than 9 months, and they do work. They work really well. I would convince people, take it. I got the vaccine done, 3 vaccines in less than 9 months. They said it was going to take 5 years, and it probably wouldn't get done. I got them done, and they do work, and they're great. I'm very proud of them. Well, I've taken it. I've had the boost.
That's enough. Do you have do you have the video of the 47 when he said, I might have been wrong and maybe got some bad advice? Do you still have that video? Does that video exist?
I couldn't find it. I looked and looked and looked. I didn't see any apologies come out about that. But
not even an AI version.
Well, we could work on that one.
I'm gonna bring our panel in. Oops, look out! What'd I do there? I wanted to bring Betty in there, and I'll bring JC in. I'll bring Martin in, and I want to talk about the Schara case. And folks, Scott Schara lost a daughter. And if I were in the jury, this is an opinion, folks, okay, based upon the information that I would have been given, I would have been one of the jurors that said, whoa, something went wrong here. And this young lady died needlessly. She would have lived if they had not treated her the way they treated her. And Ascension Health would be in trouble. But that isn't what happened. I want to share. I had jury duty, and I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. And we have a system that we've been taught to respect. That's why everybody's complaining so much, because we know we have to respect the system. In the court case I was in, the prosecution did not have enough evidence to convict the individual that was standing trial. The individual would have had to admit to his guilt in order for him to be guilty. Yet, because the state had brought the case against this individual, there were questions here and there, okay? But because the state brought the case, when I was sitting in a jury room after we heard the evidence, everybody had made the decision. There was 3 counts to work on. Everybody had made the decision that this individual was guilty in all 3 counts. And I'm going, how can you say that? And it was because the state had brought the charge. The state, the government, Big Brother had brought the charge to the individual. And because they are the ones that have credibility, they're the ones that have the weight to their judgment, they wanted to convict this individual. Now, I knew that this individual, if he was to get another trial, in other words, I could have hung the jury, they would have automatically convicted him. So there was 3 counts in this case. And on the first count, where they had no evidence whatsoever, I said to the group, listen, there's no evidence here to convict this individual. And they agreed that he would be not guilty on that count. But on the other 2 counts, in other words, the cause, there was no cause. The other 2 results wouldn't really matter if you got a good lawyer. So we didn't have a cause, but we found him guilty on the other 2 charges. And I can remember when the judge read the decision, and I was looking at the defense lawyer, and when it was not guilty on that, the defense lawyer went, what? And then when the other 2 counts come down as guilty, he did the what thing again. He had in his hand the opportunity to appeal that case. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we assume that the government is right. We assume that the government and their friends, big pharma, big business, politicians, regardless of party, doctors, teachers, professionals, that they're right. When Scott Schara and his group walked into that courtroom, they were already guilty, because we're not going to convict a doctor. I go to a doctor. I'm not going to say that doctors are wrong. Are you kidding me? Besides, they're part of Big Brother, and I know the Big Brother's good. So when you walk into a courtroom and you're facing a portion of Big Brother, you're going to have problems. Remember the no standing on the election? Big Brother, right? Politicians going to get their way. That's what you look at in the court system. And it's because we've been spoon-fed. We've been indoctrinated as the general public. Now, there might have been a couple people in that jury room who said no. But in Wisconsin, it's not one person can hang the jury. It has to be 3 people out of 12 to hang the jury. 2 people can say no, no way. But if the other 10 say yes, way, then it happens. And that's what happened in the Schara case. There were several counts that the jury had to consider, several counts. And in 2 hours, they found Ascension not guilty. They found the doctors not guilty. And I'm going to tell you, if you look at the case and you look at the drugs that they gave Grace Schara, you wouldn't take them, and you certainly wouldn't let your child take them if you knew that's what they were taking. But the Scharas didn't know. They were kicked out of the hospital room where their daughter was. Kicked out. And you have to listen to some of the Schara press conferences afterwards. These are incredible people. Incredible people. They are hurting. They did what they did. They left everything on the battlefield, folks. Everything on the battlefield. Oh, that we would do the same thing. That we would do the same thing. So, Schara versus Ascension Health, Thursday, January 19th. They gave the defense a clean slate. The doctors, the nurses, the hospital. No fault whatsoever. Anybody can pipe in here. Norm?
Yes, sir.
Martin? Betty? Fire away.
Well, I try to look at the spiritual side of things. I did a video last year called Reason or Consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we look at her death and we say, well, the reason for that is the way they treated her. No, that's not the reason. That's the consequence. Okay?
Interesting. Yeah.
The reason is because healthcare is a ministry of the church. The hospitals were originally started by the church.
Great point.
And the church turned their duties over to people that want to make money. And we've got a lot of great doctors and nurses out there, but the hospitals themselves, for the most part, not all of them, but many of them have proven to be evil. And it's about the money. And the government gave hospitals tremendous amounts of money for people that died from COVID.
Yes,
and
sir.
so, and I've said this before, in 2019, I saw the CEO of Pfizer at the World Economic Council say our goal is to reduce the world's population by 50% by 2023. And so, that's what we're dealing with. And, we've put, and I, as one, we put far too much faith in our doctors. My brother had a severe illness about 10 or 12 years ago, and he almost died. And he had spent, he spent $4,000 on medication one year, and he was praying one morning, and God asked him one question. He said, when are you going to come to me first? If I break my leg, I'm going to the hospital. But if I get sick, my first question is, God, what's going on here? And God may reveal to me that I'm not eating properly. I'm not getting any exercise. I'm not getting the rest that I need. And so that's the first place that we need to go to, when we're sick. We need to go to the Lord first. And then, he may lead me to go to the doctor. But we've just, of course, I've lost all confidence in the medical profession as a result of all this, plus all the children's hospitals cutting off body parts. And I've got zero confidence in the medical profession anymore. And again, we've got some great doctors and nurses out there, but for the most part, it's turned all about money. And we know the old saying, follow the money.
I hear you. Martin, Betty?
Yeah, I'll just say something really quick. My heart was broken when they lost. I have tear-stained eyes because I've worked with Down syndrome, and that's actually, they call them special needs. I call them special. They're not.
They are.
They're special,
Yep.
But Gracie, she was beautiful, and she was independent, and she was funny and smart and loving. Just seeing the videos that Scott had put out, she was a self-made girl, and she was she was just amazing. So they just wanted to kill her because they wanted to get rid of useless eaters. And so they went after the special, not needs, special children and people because they were useless eaters. So they were found guilty before they even went through those doors. And I pray that Scott goes to the Supreme Court with this, because it is getting out there and people are becoming aware of it. And that's what he needs, you know. When people are aware, they start waking up and maybe they'll start suing too. But I would like to say something about Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. She's a doctor, so not all doctors get off. She was guilty before she went to court because she was a frontline doctor who was trying to say, hey, this bioweapon vaccine is bad for you and you need to stay away from it. This is what it does. And so before she went into court, she was already marked guilty and she lost her license for, I think, a year. And it's just a evil world out there. We have evil doctors. We have evil justice system. And you know what? They're going to be held accountable for that. And our pastors aren't saying nothing. And they need to get off their butts and start saying what the Lord hates.
Amen. Amen. I want to get Martin in here, but before we do that, Mr. Anderson, we need to take a short break. And when we go back, we're going to talk to Martin, because Martin has an intimate relationship with doctors and family members that he needs to share with us, and we need to hear. BJ Edwards along Mr. Anderson. This is your last call, folks.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
And we need to get real about life. Martin, pipe up, brother. What you got to say?
Sure. Is the sound coming in okay, BJ?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, in 2022, my mother died very much in the same hospital format as Grace Schara. So that case really resonated with me, BJ. And all I can say is just as Mr. Schara has put on his website, get a patient advocate. If you're a family member of the one who's getting hospitalized, do your research as Mr. Schara did, and hold the people within that medical establishment accountable. Do your research, have information ahead of time. And in Acts 17, there was a group called the Bereans, and every time Paul would come to their town and speak the Bible, the Bereans would bring out their Bible and check against their Bible what Paul was saying. And that's what we need to do now, BJ, is, I hate to say it, we can't just trust the people that are in these facilities because they went to school and we did not. And that's usually what we default to. So my heart goes out to the Schara family. I watched a lot of that case, and I, like you, BJ, I've been in the court system as a juror, and I was using that information that I had remembered going through this case, and I thought, well, that seems odd on different portions. The battery charge was dropped against the one nurse, and it was just you can go back and watch it on chd.tv and also thenewamerican.com. They did awesome coverage. If you're interested in researching this case and watching it pretty much day by day, the New American did an awesome job, and I followed it very closely. And the bottom line is we are up against something much greater than us as we the people, and that's called the pharmaceutical industrial complex. It is very powerful. They get to dictate. We have to subjugate. We have to submit. So the only way to battle this, I believe, is for us to have the knowledge. What does the Bible say? My people perish for a lack of knowledge. If we have the knowledge, we can stand up against this pharmaceutical complex, and we can just be polite, ask questions, and when necessary, say no. They are our employees. We are their employers when we go to a physician for care. And we can always fire that employee if we'd like. But we can't just blindly trust any longer. And I know that every Mother's Day and every birthday of my mom that passes since 2022, I'm reminded of that. And I'm so grateful for the Scharas and their website. They have documents that each of us all around that's watching this today can download and have on ready in case we ourselves or our loved ones end up needing medical care.
This is, think about the situation that you saw the video with President 45th President Donald Trump. You saw the video and you saw with pride what he announced. And there's another thing he mentioned too, and that's the money that was pumped into this. Money is the power to make decisions, folks. They paid pharmaceutical firms to vaccinate us. They paid them to do that, billions of dollars. And they sent incentives to hospitals that under certain circumstances, you could get X number of thousands of dollars if this happens with the patient, as long as in that description, the term COVID's there. That's COVID with a dollar sign, folks.
That is correct, BJ. The CARES Act that was signed by President Trump in his first term pretty much codified that a hospital would be compensated X amount of dollars if they used ventilating machines on their patients, if certain medications that were approved by the FDA, which Mr. Fauci was ahead of at the time, which was things like remdesivir and other medications, were used and administered by the medical establishments and the doctors. There was compensation for that. But also in those days, also BJ, they were the only approved. So anything outside of that approved, like remdesivir, say ivermectin, it was not approved. If a doctor wanted to use ivermectin when they found out that that helped with the COVID-19 symptoms, it was not allowed in the hospital. So that's, we believe that's why so many people died, is because of these approved only drugs were being administered to patients who didn't need them, number one, and number two, were proven to be harmful and even deadly, as remdesivir was proved to be. It caused acute renal failure. So the patients would fill up with fluid. Well, then they put the ventilator on the patient and to help with the breathing, and then that would be basically the 1-2 punch that would take the person's life. This was the protocol that was approved by the government under Mr. Trump in 2020.
And hospitals need money, folks. They need money. And this was, I'm sorry, my opinion, this could have been an incredible gift to hospitals if they took advantage of it. I'm not saying they did, but they got an awful lot of money because of what was going on. That I bring this information to you, number one, because I want you to have some interest in what happened to the Scharas. I want you to understand that doctors aren't gods, nurses aren't gods. You know, it's interesting that in the Schara case, before the jury went out, the judge declared that an accusation against one of the nurses, a battery accusation, would be dropped, and gave reasons for that. Reasons that jurors could have used in their negotiations, if they ever even had them, as part of, well, okay, the nurse got off because of this, and this sounds a lot like that. I don't know. I don't know whether the judge gave this information with the jury present, but if he did, that was prejudiced to the jury, in my humble opinion. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an engine chief. But wow, you sense here, folks. You sense here. That's prejudiced. And the news media is huge when it comes to prejudice. They have trials before anybody ever goes to court. They try. They get public opinion rules, folks. Public opinion rules. It matters. Public opinion is upstream from politicians. It comes down, folks. They understand. They stick their finger in the air and they see what's going on. And if the public is demanding it, that's why that's what they've done with discrimination. They've never let that die. They keep picking that sore and picking that sore and picking that sore. And it keeps coming up and coming up and coming up. We will never resolve that issue. Number one, until we forgive. But number two, until we stop bringing that up. Let it go. It's not affecting you today. As a matter of fact, it's to your benefit today. You're getting your reparations in job applications, yada, yada, yada. I'm kind of digressing here. I'm getting off the subject of the Schara trial. I want you to understand that doctors are not gods. I'm not saying stop going to a doctor. I'm not saying that at all.
Another rabbit hole. But do your research and ask your doctor if what you found out is true, or if they even know about it. I don't know. I could go on about medical care. I mean, I laugh sometimes when I go in with my wife and visit a doctor, and a nurse comes in, and it's a male with fingernails painted and very effeminate, and okay, you can tell that he's not living a healthy lifestyle, and he's in the health profession. Very, very disturbing. Same as the city health district putting up their pride flags in June and promoting unhealthy lifestyle, death style, if you will. This kind of thing goes on and on and on. And COVID hasn't gone away. They still require vaccine for certain procedures.
They can still do that because we're letting it happen. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Well, that's what they do. You go in for a transplant, a vital transplant, like a heart transplant. They won't do the procedure until you have the vaccine. And the research is relentless about the problems that this vaccine has caused with heart failures in athletes, young children. The list goes on and on and on. Even J.D. Vance is dealing with that with his niece in Cincinnati, that she needs a heart transplant and they won't do it. So it's just relentless. And, our healthcare is our business, and doctors ought to be kind of like lawyers, although we always accept what lawyers tell us. Well, it's going to go this way, or this way. Well, I've learned a long time ago, you go in and tell the lawyer how you want it. The same thing, you should be able to go in and say, Doc, I have this, and this, and I want to treat it this way or that way. Different things like that. Let's work together, doctor. Let's not just follow what you call protocol. And Martin, that was a word that they're now using. Now it's protocol. And I don't know how much money these people are getting by promoting or selling the idea of, are they getting kickbacks for getting people to take the vaccine still? I don't know. It's a question to ask. We're afraid to ask those questions sometimes.
Yep. I think Norm wanted to pipe in.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I went to the doctor sometime back and he diagnosed me, and I said, well, I want to get a second opinion. He said, well, Norm, you're ugly too. So you got to weigh with what they said.
He's at least 50% right. Go ahead.
Right. He got half of it. I want to go back to Trump for a minute. There's no doubt he was dead wrong on the vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
I think his heart was in the right place. I think he wanted, to get it cured. But I got a question. I'd like some comment on this. Was he any more deceived than 98% of our pastors that shut down their churches?
Ooh, great.
I think he was, but I also believe that he didn't get the shot. I believe most of those people in the higher hierarchy got saline shots.
Yeah,
You're probably right, Betty.
Yeah, because they know what shots do, and they're on top of that, and they're part of the evil agenda. Not saying Trump or whoever, but Fauci and Gates and all them. So I believe they didn't even get the shot. It was just a setup.
Right. Martin, I want you to say something, but before, please, folks, please don't be a victim here. Do what Schara's did. Get in the game. Give it your all, and then you can complain. All right. But get in the game. We need you desperately in there.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, thanks, Group. That was Group from Despicable Me. To address Norm's, well, first I want to say get in the game. I've shared this code. The hospital system works on codes. Please take this code down. It's ICD-10 Z28.1. That is the code that the hospital will put on your chart, which says you are exempt from vaccination during any procedure that you have. So that's getting in the game. That's educating yourself, folks. Since I lost my brother, 2 days after I lost my mom, you heard that right. He died from the Pfizer vaccine. To answer Norm's question about Mr. Trump and also our pastors, I believe the pastors were, I like to use the term uneducated. They didn't do the research that I had done and a lot of people did when they saw just the strangeness happening about why are they forcing me to get a flu shot when nobody is sick from the flu. And now it was called the coronavirus in those days, not the flu. So there was that little flag that people had. The pastors should have educated themselves because they had many people in their churches that were listening to them for guidance. And as for Mr. Trump, a slight pushback, Brother Norm, was he was being counseled by Mike Pence, who was the head of the coronavirus task force in those days. And in that task force, there was obviously Fauci, who you saw on Fox News and CNN nightly. You had Deborah Birx, but you had some people that didn't make it on TV. People like Dr. Scott Atlas and Dr. Vladimir Zelenko. Okay, a lot of people don't know that Vladimir Zelenko was an upstate New York doctor healing people of COVID by the thousands. And President Trump found him in upstate New York, called him and said, hey, I'd like your advice as well. So as a good patriot, Dr. Zed Zelenko, who's Jewish, went and counseled the president, ended up helping the protocol to heal President Trump when he was in Walter Reed with his little technique, his protocol, as Mr. Anderson called it, via mostly vitamins and a few repurposed drugs. So Mr. Trump himself, this is before the vaccines were rolled out, was healed from COVID. So Zeb Zelenko, Dr. Zelenko, around this same time, Brother Norm, was warning his fellow Israelis in Israel and sent petitions to Bibi Netanyahu saying, these are death shots. Don't take them. He appealed to the governing body of these very Orthodox Jewish folks in Israel. And it's online. Don't take them. But they were so conditioned, the Israelis were, to believing that, just as President Trump said, this is safe, effective.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but those people counseled President Trump that entire time. The Pfizer documents, the 5.3.6 post-marketing data, was compiled during President Trump's first term in 2020. I can't, as a concerned citizen and a thinking American, how do I know this information? But the leader of the free world does not. So
Amen.
Either he's being greatly blocked the information by the people around him, or he's denying it.
Good point. Mark, what was that? What was that again? ICD what?
ICD 10 Z 28.1. That's the code that your listeners and your viewers want to give if they need any kind of medical procedure stuff, so that they will not be vaccinated against their will.
Okay. Now, if I go to a hospital and I say I want this and the code, and they say, "Well, no, we're not going to give you the code," what do we do then?
That I would take it to the hospital patient advocate, BJ, and say, I want this. This is a verified code that is nationwide. I think it's worldwide as well, but I know it's nationwide. And if that is denied you, find another hospital, find another medical facility.
Okay.
I would like to say something real
Go
quick.
for it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. These pastors, fear was instilled in people. The fear of the Lord is just the beginning of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So they were fearing men and not fearing God. And a lot of these churches, including mine, were getting money they were actually getting paid to close their doors.
That is true.
Like my church, it got over $300,000 so from that PPP tracking that we had. And so I asked the congregation, because we have probably 1,200, nobody knew about it. So is that why the pastor went on a lot of vacations? Where did that money go to? So they were instilled with fear. And the churches, they don't want to lose that money. They want bigger buildings. They want to line their pocket. They don't want to give the message out there and what we are to hate. So just a note there.
I want to apologize to our audience for being redundant, because I know you get this on Fox News and CNN, all this information. I have to apologize for being redundant here, okay? But just in case you didn't know about this, we're gonna put it out here for you. All right, check it yourself, folks. There's a lot of things going on in your family. A lot of things that are dividing your family. You educate yourself. Yes, educate yourself, but don't educate yourself and sit back and complain, because I see an awful lot of that going on in our theater here, and that has to stop. You have to get into the game. In our second hour, we're going to talk to Dick Manasseri, and he's one of those people that did get into the game. There's a lot you're going to learn. There's upsides and downsides, but in the end, you're going to be able to sit back and say, okay, I got engaged. Do we have a 2-minute warning, Mr. Anderson? Are you there, Mr. Anderson? Hope so. He's producing.
I'm here. I'm trying to do some things.
Okay.
I'm here. And I have a 2-minute warning.
Okay. Again, I want to go ahead.
Maybe 2 of them.
2 of them. Okay. Well, then I'll shut up. But folks, this is Do Radio. You can be entertained, but you need to take this entertainment information and use it. These are people that have been in the battle. These people that have wounds, some of them very deep wounds, folks. You don't want to experience what they've experienced. And round 2, yes, will be coming when they have us conditioned. Maybe they have to take care of this Iranian thing first, maybe. Anyway, Mr. Anderson, let's play what you got there, and then let's get to our second hour. I can't wait to get with Dick Manasseri. I love the man, love what he's doing. B.J. Edwards along Mr. Anderson. This is your last call.
Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the...
It's in Genesis. So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And
what does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what... Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
What do you mean? You don't even know the exact portion of scripture that you're using to justify your support of the modern state of Israel. Let's go ahead and educate Ted Cruz real quick on Genesis chapter 12. When the Lord says, "And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed," he wasn't referring to the modern state of Israel. And in fact, Galatians chapter 3 verse 16 says, "Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He saith not unto seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Christ." And in fact, verse 29 says, "And if ye be Christ, then are ye Abraham's seed, and heirs according to the promise," proving conclusively that the promises made in Genesis chapter 12 was not addressing the modern state of Israel. It's addressing all believers in Christ.
On Sundays.
American people do not want war. And so don't drag us into another war in the Middle East. Don't drag us into a war that's cost us $500 billion, $500 billion in Eastern Europe. What we could have done with that money. And Congress is nowhere to be seen. Folks, American people, listeners of the War Room, do not think that Congress is going to do the right thing. They are not. They are making a killing on these wars. The neocons, the neolibs. I mean, so I could go on. America is a godly country. And which is one thing that we are, in addition to other, declining capabilities, we are a nation in moral decline. And if we don't raise the stature, and now I'm talking to the ministers and the pastors and the congregations out there, get your act together. Thank God the Christian community came to the rescue of President Trump. I'm a Catholic. Steve's a Catholic. Trump got the most Catholic votes of any president, I think, since Ronald Reagan, or maybe even before, maybe even more than him. Christians better stand up and step up and be counted and speak up. And I'm not talking about the weak pastors and ministers and priests at the pulpits. I'm talking about people of moral courage. Our country has got to return to that. And it doesn't mean that there's not other things that I can argue about and debate about. But what I'm telling you is our country is in moral decline, and we are in a steep moral decline. We're not at the precipice. We're in the abyss. Read Psalm 23.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we are back. I think we have another video that we wanted to play, Mr. Anderson, don't we? To start off the second hour.
One of the points I want to make is that if you actually took the number of Muslims, Americans, we'd be one of the largest Muslim countries in the world.
Let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America.
As an eyewitness, survivor, and an activist, I can promise you, Islam cannot coexist with anything else, especially our Constitution. And these people are now coming in to turn their life and change it into what our life says. They're coming in to change our life, our Constitution, our laws into Sharia. Reason for it is they are ordered by Quran, by Allah, by Muhammad, by Hadith, and by the leaders and imams. Because within Quran it says every human being born is Muhammadian. Therefore, they need to convert everyone or kill the non-believer for the end to arrive, for their, goal to be achieved. So they're pretty much coming in to invade our country, just like they're invading Europe right now. It's just basically invasion. By letting all these people come into the country, and these people are Muslim, and our government is not really paying attention to it.
And welcome back, folks. Second hour. Politics, religion. Yeah, we're talking about those this morning. I've been blessed to be able to meet several great men and women in my role as a radio show, talk show host, and the director of the Natural Family Foundation. It's just a joy, and the learning experiences are incredible. One of those people I ran across some time ago, Dick Manasseri, I think he was in Michigan at the time, and there was an issue up there in Michigan, and I'm going to let Dick get into that and maybe tell us a little bit about his background. But Dick got involved. He got engaged. And I want him to go through some of that. But folks, if you see a need, that's your calling. We've been literally invaded over the past several decades, invaded by other nations. They didn't have to bring guns or they didn't have to blow themselves in. We motioned them in. We've been invaded. And now we're in the process of being occupied. And I want to talk about one segment of that occupation. Why don't you go ahead and bring Mr. Manasseri in, if you would, Mr. Anderson?
Wow.
Good morning to you, Mr. Manasseri. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, BJ and Mr. Anderson. It's a great to be on your program. I just listened to the last part of the last hour. You focus on action, and I think that's so critical. And you talk about things that people aren't going to hear at other places.
No, they aren't. And we keep our listenership down that way because, number one, we talk about those subjects, and number two, we demand that you do something. So people are not going to listen to us and go, wait a minute, I feel uncomfortable. I need to be doing something. So look out. Dick, how long ago did we meet, brother? Do you remember? 5 years?
I think it was 7 or 8 years ago. It might have been 2016, 17, something like that. That's when we lived in Michigan, and when we had a big enlightenment to understand something we never knew. For 75 years, we didn't know anything about what we learned when we moved to Michigan. So that might be back when it was.
And that had you had gotten involved. I think Farrah Prudence, I'd interviewed her on her program, and I don't know whether she ignited something in you or you're already doing it, but you two connected up with some other folks. And what was the issue that you saw at the time, Dick?
Well, we lived in 9 different states just because of the kind of employment I had. I was not in the witness protection program, which is a rumor I like to spread because I like people to think I was somehow connected to the mafia, but I was never connected to the mafia. Anyway, we moved to Michigan, and it was a whole different world. We realized there were people that lived under a completely different way of living. We realized that Michigan had a lot of slaves. And what do you mean? We have slaves in America? So we found out that the women in Michigan, many of the women in Michigan were living under Islamic law and therefore were slaves to other people. And that didn't seem quite right. But we were very fortunate because I want to thank you. You actually had me on a program. I got to listen to Farrah Prudence. Farrah Prudence is just one example. Farrah was born into a situation where she actually was trapped in Islam and escaped and got to tell the story on your program. We brought her to Michigan to speak to the community. And I got to tell you, when Farrah Prudence landed at the airport, bodyguards had to be provided for her. Why? Because she left Islam. Her father took out a fatwa, which for your listeners means that any Muslim anywhere in the world who comes across his daughter is sanctioned to kill her. Why? Because she left Islam. Well, that was striking. We brought her to Michigan. She actually stayed at our house. 2 bodyguards were with her the whole time. One of the bodyguards stayed up all night outside my house to protect this beautiful young woman who had a child, who was married in America, who had left Islam. But that's just an example of what we bumped into and never had previously understood a word about that. So thank you for that. You introduced fair prudence to us.
Yeah, I have a tendency to do that. By trade, folks, I'm an executive recruiter, a headhunter. I find something for people to do. and I like to do that in my position here. So you brought Farah in, and what was the goal of bringing her in, Dick?
Well, that was just one example. We were fortunate after we found out that Islam was a seditious activity, basically leading people to live without the U.S. Constitution in America. So we've learned that there are multiple seats of government across the entire country. They are called mosques. They're seats of government. They're really much more than prayer centers. They include all kind of other activities. And these mosques, by the way, have been defined as seats of government of people who follow Sharia for 1,400 years. So this is nothing new. We didn't know that. And we found out there's 3,400 mosques across the country. Do the math. That means most people are within 50 to 60 miles of a mosque. If they don't happen to see one right around the corner, they're everywhere. And they are seats of foreign governments, people who believe they should follow Mohammed. By the way, let's talk about that briefly. The word Mohammedans is really an appropriate word. These are people that believe Mohammed was a prophet of a God named Allah, and that people should live under the example of Mohammed. Well, who was Mohammed? We know from his own documents, the Quran, the Hadith, the books that were written about Muhammad say exactly who he was and what he did. Well, it turns out that what he did is he was a warlord, he was a murderer, he was a pedophile, and he basically put into practice what we call Sharia, which is the way Muslims are supposed to live no matter where they are. So, by the way, one of our responsibilities is to protect our fellow citizens, whether they're Christians or Jews or whoever. And one of the problems we have with that is we learned in Michigan, Mohammed said that the only way to live, no matter where you do live, is under Sharia, which means the law of your land, like the U.S. Constitution, is overridden by the tenets of Sharia. We can talk about what that means, of course. So to answer your question, when we did get involved in Michigan, we saw that there were crimes that were sanctioned under this, let's just call it the Sharia Constitution. It's the way people are supposed to live in America. Well, that meant that women who are not covered are sanctioned to be raped. It means that women who are in a Muslim relationship are open to wife beating. It means that children, 8-year-old, 9-year-old girls and boys, are sanctioned to be sexually molested, and in the case of young girls, to be physically cut, female genital mutilation, all of these things, and we can go through a whole list. The point is, there are people living as our neighbors in Michigan who believe that was the way they were supposed to live, including total disregard for the Constitution, because something else is more important than the Constitution. Well, some people call that sedition. So anyway, there was a bunch of crimes that are sanctioned under Sharia. The 3,400 mosques in America, multiple times a day, preach living under this unconstitutional way. In fact, this criminal behavior way of living. We got concerned. We brought some people to Michigan, including Farah Prudence and other wonderful Americans that we met, including Philip Haney, Robert Spencer, and other people. We brought them into Michigan to speak. And that was a challenging thing to do. And we got into a little bit of trouble by doing that.
Who's we, Dick?
We is a small group of people called Sharia Crime Stoppers. So people are familiar with Crime Stoppers. You know, if you go through your neighborhood, you'll see a sign. If you see something, contact police. They're ready. The impression, by the way, when you see a Crime Stoppers notice, is if you report a crime, they know what to do. Well, the problem with Sharia Crime Stoppers is if you believe there's a criminal behavior going on in America and it's a Sharia crime, and you contact the police, they don't want to hear it and they don't know anything about it. You showed on the intro a picture of Barack Obama. So Barack Obama destroyed the truth about Islam in 2012. So for 2 decades, FBI, Department of Defense people were trained on Sharia law and the criminal behavior that it is. The FBI needed to know that. Well, Barack didn't want that. So in 2012, Barack and John Brennan, who was the head of the CIA at the time and a Muslim, you can use your own opinion about Barack's Muslim connection. Barack Obama fired specific people who taught Islam and Sharia to the FBI and the Department of Defense. We know those people. So from 2012, your local law enforcement, your sheriff, knows nothing about what I'm talking about. And if you saw something that you thought, if you saw a young girl who was perhaps been married off to an older man, or you saw a woman who was beaten in her home, or if you saw a man with 4 wives, if you saw a crime and you call your police department, they know nothing because Barack Obama mandated no knowledge about Sharia crime in the FBI Department of Defense. Keep in mind, this is the way the message gets to sheriffs and local law enforcement. So the punchline of part of our message, by the way, thank you for being action-oriented, is if you're hearing this conversation and you're concerned, do not expect your police to know anything about what I'm talking about. If you want to protect you and your family, the action item is you have to do that. And you have to understand more about this. You have to be aware, situation awareness. If you're walking in a mall and there's a Sharia compliant woman, perhaps dressed in a hijab, in your mall, there's a man. She doesn't get to the mall by herself. Her brother, her husband, somebody's with her. That man, when he sees uncovered women, perhaps like you, he knows that his way of living, Sharia, tells him you are he is sanctioned to sexually molest and rape you because you are not covered. That's how Sharia works. So that may be surprising to your listeners, but I guess I just want to get to the punchline. You are on your own. Learn what you can and protect yourself and your family, because unfortunately, sadly, the police are not prepared. The federal government is not prepared. And I want to go all the way back to the FBI. Unfortunately, the Department of Justice are unprepared to take the appropriate action to keep the country from sedition, which is part of Sharia, and to protect individual people like your listeners.
Yes, but that's not happening, Dick. I mean, there aren't Muslims in shopping centers that are doing what you're talking about. That isn't happening.
Well, it is happening. In fact, if you look at the news, you'll see that there are, not just in Michigan, Dearborn is kind of the message. People think, well, I don't live anywhere near Dearborn. What do I care? Well, if you look around your neighborhood, you will find a mosque. And if you want to have examples, let's talk about the great state of Texas, which is known to be the biggest and the best and the most patriotic place in America. Well, in fact, Islam has infiltrated every state, every county. But let's talk about Texas as an example. People may have heard that there are Muslim-only communities in Texas. How could that be? Well, that could be because Texas has been infiltrated for years. And despite what the governor of Texas is now boasting about, it's not going to happen there, according to the governor. Well, it's already been happening. So the governor, like a lot of other leaders who may have taken money from the medical industrial complex related to Sharia, your last hour, there's plenty of money coming out of the Middle East, coming into America through mosques and individual Muslim citizens that end up in the pockets of politicians. Unfortunately, and I guess this is a little bouncing around, but you did talk about how could Donald Trump be deceived about COVID and the vaccination? Well, how could Donald Trump be confused about Islam and the danger it is to the survival of this country? How could he be that deceived? Well, he's deceived enough. And I'll just give you a couple examples. By the way, BJ, interrupt and shut me up if I get too far afield here. But keep in mind that Donald Trump has made massive appointments that were wrong on COVID. Well, let's talk about Islam and Sharia. Well, he just appointed 3 people to the Religious Freedom, the Liberty Council under Paula White. Paula White is his pastor for years. Susan Wiles is his chief of staff for years. Let's just talk about those people. Susan Wiles had a lobbying company where her living previous to working with the president, she ran a company that brought in people to lobby the Senate and the House and the executive branch. So under Susan Wiles, the chief of staff of Donald Trump, that organization that she managed or owned hired Pam Bondi to lobby for Qatar. Qatar is a Middle East country. It's the richest country in the world per capita. They send tons of money into universities, and they hold other kind of influence operations to push Islam into America. So the lady, Pam Bondi, is not going to take decisive action against Islam in America. And I don't think Donald Trump is. I think Donald Trump will identify foreign activities that he can participate in that will appear to be negative with Islam. Like, obviously, there's a war going on with Iran. Turkey is threatening the people of Israel. By the way, when people talk about Israel, we got to remember that Israel as a people group is identified in the Bible constructively. But it's not just Israel. Israel, the people group, is my Jewish neighbors in America. And those are the people that we need to be concerned about because they're a target of Islam. Anyway, back to who did Donald Trump appoint? He appointed 3 known Muslim advocates to the Council on Religious Freedom. One of them is notorious for his history associated with the Muslim Brotherhood in America and Hamas. Pam Bondi worked for Susan Wiles in a lobbying activity to lobby for the country of Qatar. Well, the country of Qatar is the home of the Muslim Brotherhood. Many of the Muslim Brotherhood leaders around the world live in Qatar. And so there's a massive problem. And so we have the continuing situation of a blindness in America. Even though we talk about Islam being a bad thing out in other parts of the world, the Trump administration is not taking any appropriate action to identify the danger of Islam in America. And that's kind of what Sharia Crime Stoppers is all about. So that was long-winded. Help me get back to topic.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break, give you a chance to catch some air.
Thank
and
you.
maybe open up the panel here and see what the panel has in terms of questions for comments for you.
Great.
BJ Edwards along Mr. Anderson. We're speaking with Dick Manasseri, somebody that has got himself educated on some folks that are living in this country that are not necessarily constitutionally inclined, if I want to say that. Anyway, take a break.
Okay.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
A lot of folks complain about, you want biblical laws here in the United States. That's all you want. You just want a biblical nation, Christian nation. Shame on you. But we have folks that are in this nation that are setting up their own communities and their own laws, and they are not in love, endeared with the Constitution of the United States. I'm going to bring some of our guests in. Bring Norm. Looks like he's ready to say something. And who else we got here? Betty, and that's all we got for now. Anyway, go ahead, Norm.
Well, Brother Dick, appreciate what you're doing. It's been 15 or 20 years ago. My neighbor gave me a cassette tape of a pastor that he knew that was in Texas. And this pastor had a good friend that was a Muslim. And I don't know if they were neighbors or what, but anyway, they were close friends. And the Muslim told him, he said, I really care about you, but he said, when I get the word, I will have to kill you. So, they may buddy up to you and you think you're, close friends, but, you can't trust them. And as far as the president, it's obvious that his eyes are not open in a lot of areas. We covered the vaccines, and we really need to be praying for him. that the Lord will open his eyes, put people around him to open his eyes to all the evil that's going on. Like I said, I like to think he's got a good heart and, wants to do the right thing. But, when when you're deceived and, and as Martin talked about the pastors, being uneducated about things. And so we really need to keep him in prayer.
100% agree with that. We need to keep him in prayer and then be watchful ourselves. We need to be discerning where we can. One of the challenges is when good things are done, we kind of excuse things that confuse us. I mean, let's think for a minute. We had 4 years of evil under Biden. Mm-hmm. Somehow Trump is in power. However he gets in power, he's there and he does some good things. The problem we have to be careful about is we then don't look at the other things. The only topic I want to bring up in the idea of Trump's associates is this thing called artificial intelligence. I think we need to recognize that there's a whole cadre of very, very rich people. Probably some of the 10 richest people in the world are now associates of Donald Trump. They're there. They went on the trip to the Middle East. Why would artificial intelligence executives, Elon, Sam, other people who are owners and beneficiaries of artificial intelligence investments travel with the president to the Middle East? Why would he get a $600 billion deal with Saudi Arabia, some of it to promote artificial intelligence? So just want to point out, we can come back to that. There's a connection, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. We just need to look at the good things that are done and praise him as well as other leaders. But if something is confusing, I think we need to be as honest as we can. And I think that's why it's great to be associated with you guys on the panel, because that's what I already heard you do in the first hour.
Amazing. Martin, go ahead, please. You want to talk about the Constitution?
Actually, I was going to thank you for everything that you do in Michigan, Dick. That I did a little research and come across a cool little video. It looks like you're a pickleball fan, my friend. Is that true?
Well, thank you for that. On the lighter moments of life, I got to tell you, there are people who get very depressed by me, and I depress myself and my family because of what I've learned. And so having outlets like pickleball is wonderful. By the way, anybody who has yet to find pickleball, take a look at it. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Martin.
You're so welcome, Dick. Yeah, it is. It's basically a life-size ping pong, folks, is what it is. It's full contact ping pong. But what I wanted to bring to your attention, I was wondering, Dick, if you had heard of a wonderful Substack journalist. Her name is Inez Annie Cyrus, and she writes a fantastic Substack article, and it was called, I think Mr. Anderson has it in the queue. It was called The Constitution versus Sharia, One Must Fall. And if I can, I would like to read the opening remarks that Ms. Cyrus wrote and get your comments on this, Dick. Let me see if I can get it here.
Martin, you're breaking up.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Is it? Okay. It's probably because I'm on this other screen. But if
Dick, are you familiar with that lady?
Well, let me just answer this question. Martin, I got the chills here, Martin. You got me on pickleball. Annie Cyrus was on the same trip with Farrah Prudence in our Michigan group. We had Annie Cyrus present at our church. We were blessed to have a pastor who understands. He's probably the only pastor in Michigan understood Islam. So Annie Cyrus is a personal friend, and you, sir, are quite insightful to pick this up. This is exactly the point. Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, I apologize for the people that come in on this show. They seem to know what they're talking about, Dick.
It's not just pickleball. It's Annie Cyrus.
Well, I'd like to say something. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, and where there is no vision, people perish. So I had a reel from my brother from Montana about the truckers, and he said that half of the truckers are Islam or Middle Easterners, and they all disappeared. And he said that is so strange. Something's up. So people need to be awake of what's going on. And also, as far as AI, my discernment's always, I love Trump. Don't get me wrong. I like a lot of the things he does, but my discernment's up with him always too. And so when he got Elon Musk on there, is like, why would you want someone on there who worships Satan and is doing, not good things in my book? So anyway, when that beautiful bill came out and they said that AI cannot be banned for 10 years. So what are they going to do to us when they also have this thing? Because there's so many people that are gamers, so they can put this little round thing on their forehead and it makes them go into another dimension or another, I don't know. I'm not going to try it. I don't know what it is, but their eyes turn white. Why would they want to do something like that? So people need to get their heads out of the sand. I'll be nice and start watching and watching your behind your back and have discernment up and question everything.
By the way, if you're listening to this program and you feel a desire to do something, you're excused. Okay? The rest of you stay in here until we get you motivated. Go ahead, Dick.
BJ, I'm supposed to be the guy talking, and I'm sitting here learning from your panel. What a wonderful panel. Let me just mention, when I think of AI, I think about China. China already has the ability to control over 1 billion people 24/7 all day long. That's the technology that the AI billionaires are associated with. Whether the code came from America or came from China, it already is in existence, and it's the way people are managed in a massive country. It's called technocracy. It means that these people are facially recognized, on a street corner, 100 people in China across the street, they're definitely identified individually and people know about their background. By the way, they probably know whether or not they had a medical treatment like a COVID shot, and they probably know whether or not they were compliant with the government. Well, that's what technocracy is. That's what AI can do. In addition to a lot of good things, just like the president, it can do a lot of things that take away freedom. By the way, relative to the bigger topic, I think we need to be very aware of the strengths and weaknesses of everybody. I mean, obviously, including me. So Trump is an excellent deal maker. He loves it. He makes deals. Deals are typically things that happen between people who are already pretty wealthy, and they make deals to make sure that they don't lose power and they don't lose money. Maybe they'll make a lot of more money. Well, that's a great skill for a corporate leader, but for somebody leading a country that has a constitution which focuses on individual freedom, we got to be careful. You don't see a lot of deals which typically make people more free. And so I would just use the example, we need to be aware that the technology exists. By the way, if you had a difficult situation and you could look at a technology that keeps people at peace and relatively safe, even if they're not free, you might get excited about that. And if you can make money about that, you might just adopt that. Let's say, for example, and I'm certainly not a prophet or predictor even, but if you have a place that's really difficult where people are killing each other, why don't you just drop this technology called, that exists in China, it works. Why don't you just drop that over the people and try to convince people that they should accept that, give up a little bit of their freedom, because now they won't kill each other. Well, that sounds like a great idea for a two-state solution. And I want to, a two-state solution. Well, how about a two-state solution in America? Remember, we have at least 2 states in America. We're talking about a government. We're talking about 3,400 government outposts in America of people who don't want our Constitution, who don't want us to be free, and who want to live under Sharia. Well, that's a two-state solution already in practice because our leadership and our law enforcement are looking the other way. But you can imagine if Los Angeles, riotous Los Angeles, was in China, the technology in China would be used to quell. Los Angeles in China would be taken care of immediately because people would be able to watch that situation and control it because people would be identified. They would have facial recognition. All those people in Los Angeles would be identified, and law enforcement could take advantage of the technocracy to quiet things down, and people would applaud that. People would definitely applaud safety over freedom. my concern with artificial intelligence and the billionaires and the deal makers is we've got to be careful. We may end up with pockets of places outside of China, which somehow all of a sudden are living under a surveillance blanket that artificial intelligence allows to happen. So that was again, I hope I'm not off topic here, but I do think we need to realize we kind of have a two-state situation in America. These people are absolutely committed to living under Sharia. The imams talk about it 5 times a day. And the point was also made, thank you, Norm, I think it was, there are very friendly Muslims. By the way, we pray for Muslims to find their salvation in Jesus Christ. We do not hate Muslims. We detest Sharia as a way of living, but Muslims are trained to be good, to be nice to us as long as they're not in control. Shahram Hadian has a term for that. He was a former Muslim. He's a Christian pastor, and he says Muslims live in the lower house when they live in a country like America where they're not powerful enough. But when they become powerful enough, they move into the upper house where they are aggressively Sharia. That's the way things are in Michigan, by the way. Michigan is in the upper house. It is largely controlled by people who live as Muslims openly, and there are other parts of America that are like that. Certainly Europe, parts of Europe, the UK is overrun. The UK elected a Muslim mayor 10 years ago, Sadiq Khan, and London is largely living under Sharia. They have 80 Sharia tribunal courts in the country of England, where we think common law was created. There are people living under Sharia openly in the country of England. And in America, there are people openly or not openly living that way. And we just need to be aware that America has already got a two-state solution. We just it hasn't dawned on most of us.
Interesting.
I would like to say also that like 20 years ago, I heard on our local news station that they were telling all these Muslim communities to have as many children as you can have, because what happens in 18 years, they can vote and they can get in office and all sorts of such things.
Well, that's called Hijra. By the way, Betty, that's a great point. I'll continue to compliment the staff, the panel. So Hijra is part of Sharia. And basically, Hijra is moving to another country where Muslims are not in control, and to live there and to live inside of that idea and to penetrate and infiltrate. Oh, by the way, in some parts of America, you can't find a non-Muslim doctor. I mean, I'm just saying. So the medical community largely infiltrated. In some parts, certainly in Michigan, it's hard to find a non-Muslim doctor. So you come in, it's called Hijra. You bring in your 4 wives, you have children. And by the way, I want to compliment BJ, natural family. What a wonderful concept. We've been celebrating natural family with my pastor, Pastor Whitney, who you've had on your program. You want to talk about an unnatural family, Betty, an unnatural family. Can you imagine growing up as an 8-year-old child in a Muslim family in America? Your mom has 3 competitors. There's 3 other women who are called whatever they're called. They're competitors in your family. There's 4 wives in America, largely under some welfare payments, by the way, because they're not identified as wives. Natural family, because your mom is treated like property, and you see your mom treated very poorly. By the way, your sister, who's 9, may be actually already married to a 35-year-old man, and that's okay. So you're a young boy and you see this. You may live in Philadelphia, where we've got video of 8-year-old boys being trained in jihad, being trained that they are to grow up and kill infidels, non-Muslims. Oh, by the way, specifically Jews. But the other specific call is to kill people of the Bible. So I'm just saying the unnatural families that are all over America are unfortunately and sadly the Muslim families. This 8-year-old boy doesn't have a chance. He's going to grow up, and this 8-year-old girl is going to be married off. By the way, when she's 11, her mother's going to bring her to Michigan to have her female genital cut, circumcised. Why? Because Sharia teaches her and the 8-year-old boy that women are a problem and their female genitals need to be mutilated because that's a problem, and therefore that's all part of it. I guess what I'm trying to say is we have very unnatural families, and despite, in some cases, people that want to, quote, appear to be our friends, as Norm said, we have people who, when the call is given, will be mandated to turn on people of the book in particular, and Jews in America, part of the Jewish nation in America, to turn on them as well.
For the first time listeners, the people of the Bible are Christians. Let's take a break, Mr. Anderson. When we come back, I think some other folks want to pipe in here, and when we're talking about the problem, but you mentioned some things about the process, and AI is part of the process. So talking about procedures doesn't necessarily get us off subject. It just kind of clarifies what tools we have and what tools the enemy has as well. B.J. Edwards along.
You need to hear this. The destruction of the family is the destruction of the Western world.
Bummer. Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with B.J. Edwards.
At the rate we're going in America today, picture communities in 5 years from now. Let's just talk about the birth rate and how Americans are just thinking about themselves. When they do have children, they're still thinking about themselves, not about the children themselves. Where we're going to be, if you start moving in or you start populating a certain area, and Dick's already kind of our guest Dick Manasseri has already kind of hinted strongly about this. They are going to do what their church body, if you will, dictates, what their writings dictate, what the Quran dictates, is what they're going to do. And the HE double hockey sticks with anything else, we the people or the Constitution or any other gods. You do have to respect this group, because they are very loyal and very strict about their religion. Amen, Dick. And Martin, did you want to say something, sir?
I did, BJ. Thank you. I wanted Dick's words to those who might be watching Last Call in Texas. And if you would, Dick, speak about the Epic City. What should Texans, should they be concerned? Is it just another religion? Speak on the Epic City that's being built in Texas right now, sir.
Great question. Great question.
Again, Martin, you are, again, more chills because you mentioned Epic City, which is in Plano. And guess what? We lived in Plano before we lived in Michigan. So Plano is a very nice community. And the Epic Center, by the way, Epic stands for, what's the name of, let's see, East Plano Islamic Center. That's what Epic is. And that's already been in existence. It's already a Muslim community in the town of East Plano. And there's already an informal community of Muslims that live around the mosque and behave according to Sharia. Epic Center is, what you mentioned, Martin, is a very clever real estate situation where Yasser Qadi, who was a former known associate of the Muslim Brotherhood, they put together 402 acres. It's all plotted out. They're going to build a Muslim-only city. It'll be built around a mosque, but it'll have a hospital and schools. Unfortunately, the only way to buy land in that city is to make a down payment. And there was actually a 10% discount if you did it right away. So you have a Muslim Brotherhood supporter doing a real estate commercial. You basically give a down payment to the mosque. So you can only buy the property through donating to the mosque, and then they'll assign a plot to you. Well, when you donate to the mosque, you can even get a federal tax deduction for your donation.
What?
Yes. So American taxpayers are giving a benefit to and supporting indirectly the construction through the mosque of a 402-acre plot that will be only Muslims, because you have to basically be associated with the mosque to even get there. But the news is, after Governor Abbott, this is the point I kind of want to make too about, unfortunately, politicians are about money and power. So Governor Abbott comes out after people expose this and say, well, that'll never happen under me. There will be no Sharia in Texas, and we're gonna investigate. Well, guess what? For 12 years, there's been other cities like this. There have been other Sharia only, Muslim only cities in Texas. Of course, the governor knows about it, and the legislators know about it. So anyway, they claim that they're going to investigate and shut this down, but we already have those kind of cities. I forget the names of them. I think Colony Ridge might be one. There are other ones which have been exposed, and they already exist. Okay, so the answer is, and by the way, just as an example of the penetration of Texas, another really excellent person named Pastor Andy Wood, who lives in Sugar Land, Texas, Texas is big, so this is 400 miles away from Plano, near the Houston community, Sugar Land, Texas. The Muslims are so strong there that they've taken over the town square for an event where they live broadcast from Mecca the prayers. So here's a bunch of people, let's say 400 Muslims in a square in a small town in another part of Texas, watching a big screen live from Mecca and participating in conjunction with their partners in their way of living, their weekday prayers. So I'm just saying Texas is heavily infiltrated, and the Epic City is the one that got people's attention because it's so big, and also because it's so in your face, because the man selling the real estate lots is Yasser Qadi, a known associate of the Muslim Brotherhood in America. By the way, Muslim Brotherhood in America is spelled CAIR. It's called CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations. CAIR, to tie it back to the other stuff we talked about, CAIR has penetrated many state capitals and the federal government. So CAIR is Hamas. Think about it. Hamas, on October 7th, slaughtered men, women, and children, including cutting women's wombs to take out babies. They are Hamas. Hamas has been around for a number of years. The Muslim Brotherhood was started in 1928, but the affiliate of the Muslim Brotherhood in America is CAIR. CAIR is a respected part of the Obama administration, and I hate to say it, but CAIR members are also infiltrated into this new Trump administration. So we need to be aware that despite the politicians saying they're going to investigate the mission, okay, we love the Texas Rangers. Some of us remember the Lone Ranger. The Texas Rangers are going to investigate what's going on in East Plano. Well, you know what? They don't know how to investigate it because they don't understand Sharia, and they were never trained for the last 15 years. So we got a problem when people say they're going to take and shut this down. The answer is Texas is already infiltrated. Lots of other parts of the country are as well. And thank you, Martin, for bringing it up. Another great topic.
Well, we're on a roll. Go ahead, Martin. You said you had another question. But by the way, diversity. If you don't think that item, that name, that process isn't being used, you're crazy. That is until control is obtained, and then diversity goes out the door, or maybe out the window along with some practitioners thereof. Anyway, Martin, go ahead.
Once again, Dick, as we see these different movements now starting to go from state to state to state, what can your local legislators do to deter it or even stop it? That would be my first question. Then I have a second question.
Well, I think you need to be careful. You need to be very aggressive with these legislators. I'll just give you the example. Okay, in the state of Michigan and a few other states, maybe 10 years ago, American law for American courts was introduced. The people from the Center for Security Policy, David Juraslami, and a lawyer in Michigan got Michigan legislator introduced the American law for American courts. The gentleman who did that was a representative named Dave Agema. We worked with him. It was defeated. A Republican-led legislature in the state of Michigan would not go with American law for American courts, and that happened in other states. Unfortunately, the politicians are influenced, of course, by lobbyists across every state. This is going to be a fairly tough topic to bring up, and I feel compelled to bring it up. In Michigan, the people that defeated American law for American courts included a partnership between CARE, the Muslim Brotherhood in America, and sadly, the Michigan Catholic Conference.
Bingo.
Bingo. This is a really tough subject. God bless. My family is 90% Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. I went to a Jesuit high school. I went to a Jesuit college. And I would call myself a devout Catholic at that time. I just want to bring up this point. For whatever it's worth, we love our families. We love individual Catholics. Some of the best people morally in America are practicing Catholics. The problem I'm going to identify is a difficult one. In the state of Michigan, there's something called interfaith dialogue. It's all over the country. Interfaith dialogue is largely an activity promulgated by the Sharia compliant people. So in Michigan, one of the most powerful people in Michigan is Imam Ilahi, who was the imam of the largest mosque in Dearborn. And he and the Archbishop of Detroit promote interfaith dialogue. The idea of interfaith dialogue is, well, can't we all get along?
Mm-hmm.
Can't we all meet, discuss our differences? On paper, it says we can keep our differences, but can't we just be ecumenically connected and work together to build a world that is kind of based on one world religion? I mean, that's ultimately the followers of Muhammad's energy around interfaith dialogue is to get people to accept Islam. Well, let's face it, in the last 10 years, compared to maybe when I was in Michigan and we interacted with BJ, followers of Muhammad have been largely normalized. That's what we're talking about. It's okay, even though they talk about another way of living, another constitution, seditious behavior in terms of not living under the Constitution. It's okay, and I think you have to attribute that to interfaith dialogue. So you have plenty of evangelicals and Orthodox people and Protestant people and Episcopalians, but also, sadly, the Roman Catholic Church are in partnership on interfaith dialogue. And I want to just bring people's attention. If you go, and again, I think maybe some of our panelists are Catholic. Like I said, my family's Catholic. This is not a happy topic. Individual Catholics in the pews don't know what I'm going to say. And I didn't know it. If you look at the Roman Catholic Catechism in paragraph 841, you will see a paragraph that was written after Vatican II. And that sentence specifically, because I got it up here, hang on. I'm going to read it carefully. All right, Vatican II, 1964, the following statement came out. I'm going to read it. But the plan of salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator, comma, in the first place among whom are Muslims, comma. Oh, wait a minute. That surprised me when I read it, when I found it. I just want to make the point. If you're asking a question about why do we have the infiltration of Muslims across a free country like America, if you go to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, sadly, you can look at Vatican Council and papal statements on Islam, and you will see from 1964, the Vatican Council, right up through 65, every pope since that time has made positive comments about Islam, and that includes the Pope. So, I mean, Pope Francis in particular went out of his way to embrace Islam. If you remember, there's something in Abu Dhabi called the Abraham Family Center, which has a Roman Catholic church, a mosque, and a synagogue, all built on the same real estate. And that came out of a declaration. So all I'm trying to get at here is we need to be careful. There is in the Bible a notion of one world religion. And we will largely have, I would say 95% of the creation of one world religion is based on this massive ecumenical movement to have interfaith dialogue with all kinds of religions. And my only comment is you can verify everything I said by going to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and understand that. Well, if you have imams in Michigan or Texas and Roman Catholic bishops embracing interfaith dialogue, you kind of allow Islam to become, Mohammedanism to become normal. And I'm afraid to say that's what we have in America. So I'll be quiet now. But that I feel compelled to say that, and I think it's a very difficult topic.
Our guest, Dick Manasseri. We'll let Norm get in here in a second. Just remind you, you're listening to lastcallradio.live. B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. Christian Talk Radio with a sting, where you can see the difference. It's Do Radio, folks. We are asking you to do. I'm going to give you two contradictory headlines. I was going to read this one article. One says, massacre at dawn, 200 Christians slaughtered, burned alive by jihadist extremists. This is in Nigeria. This is also from Nigeria. Catholic bishop builds mosque for displaced Muslims. I decided to build a mosque using funds from the diocese, the Catholic Church leader said, has defended his decision to build a mosque for Muslims displaced by Boko Haram insurgency, and underscored by his commitment to fostering interfaith dialogue and peaceful coexistence. Folks, we need to recognize who our adversaries are. We need to recognize the problems. And look, I want to get along with everyone, but you need to be very careful. You're known by the company you keep. And diversity, I brought it up earlier, that it is just, it's scary what they're doing with that word diversity. Norm, go ahead. Norm Davis.
Well, I think, we really need to wake up to the spiritual issue here. I mean, how cunning and how smart evil is. Say on one side, we've got the Muslim having 8 kids, each family. And then over here on the other side, we've killed 65 million babies, which brings it closer together. Plus, we've promoted the gay marriage. Now, I don't know if any of them's had any kids. Do y'all?
Some of them have. Some of them have, yeah.
But anyway, that's, it's just a tremendous spiritual battle that we're going to have to spend a lot more time on our knees.
Yeah, we need to think, folks. You really need to think. And in America, we are spoiled rotten. I mean, spoiled. Our expectancy level is off the charts. We expect to feel good about everything, and if we don't feel good about something, then something's wrong. Okay, and so we got to do something to make sure that we feel good, because our feelings are number one. And I'm in America, and I'm entitled to that. Well, your feelings are going to get not only yourself, but family members, etc. You're going to put them in danger, and they're going to be hurt, and they're going to end up possibly in slavery if they live that long. This is, folks, we're just trying to make you aware of what is going on. Take a look around you. And like I said earlier today, if you see a need that you're calling, Mr. Manasseri has taken the call. It's not been easy, has it, brother?
Well, actually, you're right. On the other hand, I guess there's a reason why we do what we do. And again, I just want to compliment this panel. I'm encouraged. Let me put it this way. I'm encouraged by the comments and the questions that your guests are asking. And so, yeah, by the way, there are people who go out of their way to identify people like you guys. In Michigan, I'll just real quick, we had a candidate for governor, Abdul El Sayed, in 2018, a self-proclaimed Sharia-compliant Muslim running for the office of governor. He lost, but he got 350,000 votes. We identified what we talk about right now on the show with him at his events. We were then labeled as there's an organization you may know of called the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Oh, you didn't make that list. I'm going to get jealous. I'm going to get jealous.
Specifically in the category of an anti-Muslim hater. Why? Because we went out of our way to help Michigan voters understand what a Sharia-compliant governor would be like. He did get 350,000 votes, which was a lot. And in addition to that, by the way, after that identification, the new governor, Whitmer, who's there now, she got her attorney general to go after 31 organizations in Michigan and monitor their behavior if they were on the Southern Poverty Southern Poverty Law Center hit list. Well, we were. So we were actually under the watchful eye of the Attorney General, which is, this is America. We're supposed to be able to do what we do. And unfortunately, we came under that monitoring process. So, yeah, people need to make their decisions. And again, I just want to go back to the one punchline. Individual people do not count on your local law enforcement. They don't know anything about what we're talking about. You are on your own to protect your son, your daughter, your grandchildren, and yourself, even from a friendly neighbor. As I think Norm said, be careful when the time comes. And I think, by the way, the time is not that far away. We do have an agitated group of people in the Middle East calling out Muslims in America to take action against infidels. That would be you and me, our Jewish neighbors, and the people that believe in the Bible.
Yeah. Is there a organization or anything we can do to help you, Dick? We've got about 2 more minutes left. And I bet he wants to make a quick comment, but please, how can we help you at this point?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Sharia Crime Stoppers is a concept, is an idea. We have a website called Sharia Crime Stoppers on YouTube. You can go there and educate yourself. Included on that website are training for law enforcement. If you get anybody to pay attention, we can't. So we are largely a group that collected a lot of information. Sharia Crime Stoppers on YouTube is someplace you can go and learn. We are unable to train law enforcement because they won't take us. There you go. Thank you for that. So Sharia Crime Stoppers is alive on the internet. In terms of actually educating law enforcement, doesn't happen anymore because nobody wants it. Educate yourself and protect yourself, I guess is my message. Mm-hmm. We're here to learn what we know. There you go. Great website. By the way, you'll find Philip Haney, you'll find Annie Cyrus, you'll find really great people on that website. Again, some of these things are 5 and 6 years old. They're still relevant. So I guess one of the things you can do is educate yourself. There are people still in the fight like Leo Hohmann. You can go to leohohmann.com and learn what he's saying today. You can go to Brandon House's website and you'll see people still in the fight. But I want you to understand that when you do that, we're a remnant. We're not growing. We're a remnant of people who want to tell the truth. And if you want to join that group and just tell the truth, to learn for yourself, take care and protect yourself. That's where we're at.
Thank you, Dick Manasseri. Betty, if you can make it real quick, we got about 2 minutes.
People need to keep their discernment up. The Noahide laws are in effect. And they are in effect in all 50 states. They're just not enforced. And you got to realize that all the presidents have signed in support of the Noahide laws, including Reagan and Trump and all of them. And Trump had just went over to some kind of convention with concerning the Noahide laws. So you just keep your discernment up. I like Trump, what he's doing with some stuff, but there's some stuff I just keep my antennas going. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Betty. Dick, we got 1 minute.
Well, Betty, you are an example of what we're talking about. You know what's going on. You give praise where it's due, and you have discernment to be aggressively against things that don't make sense, that are not part of your biblical worldview. And I think that's what people need to do. They need to rely on their discernment. They need to educate themselves. So I'm blessed to be able to be on this panel. BJ, thank you for I'm learning from your panel. This would be a program that everybody should be telling people about. I mean, this is going to be on next week, right, BJ?
Yep.
You're going to do it again. How many years you been doing this?
10, I think.
Well, but you've been involved in the fight for decades.
Oh, I've got 38 years of activism. So yeah.
God bless you, sir. Well, thank you for letting me participate. What a gift.
You're blessed. You're a blessing to us, brother. You're a blessing. If you want to stick by after the program, there's folks may have some more comments for you.
Okay.
It's up to you. Folks, please, you have an opportunity to appear on Last Call Radio where you can see the difference. Imagine that. Imagine your family and friends, you'd be able to, just because you went out and did what was right. Huh? It's that easy. It's that easy. Dick Manasseri, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. I appreciate our panel today. They did a great job. And yeah, they are fairly well informed. Mr. Anderson, why don't you take us out of here? BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This has been your last call. Actually, this is your last.
Join us next week for Last Call with BJ Edwards.